Every Genesis is a reminder to try something new, to keep growing, keep hustling, keep beginning. At Genesis, they harness that mindset into their performance SUV, the GV70. Turn heads with a stunning design inside and out. Discover intuitive technology inside the GV70 with a 14.5-inch infotainment system. The Genesis GV70 is for those who are making their mark on the world and want to enjoy luxurious amenities while they do it. So go on and enjoy an exhilarating drive in the GV70. Your Genesis GV70 is waiting for you. Learn more at genesis.com. Genesis, keep beginning. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Zoe, and you're listening to Climbing in Heels. This show is all about celebrating the most extraordinary superwomen who will be sharing their incredible journeys to the top, all while staying glamorous. Today with me, we have clothing designer Anine Bing. She's the founder and chief creative officer of her Los Angeles-based fashion brand, Anine Bing, that embodies the most effortlessly cool pieces with a genuine rock and roll twist. On this episode, Anine speaks about how she grew her brand from a tiny online blog to a makeshift store in her garage to now having 20 stores around the world. Anine reveals her fears and challenges when creating a company and fashion brand, but she also takes a moment to acknowledge where she is now and how balanced she feels. Hi, honey. I'm happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you.
You're in the studio, it looks like.
Yes, I'm in the office here in downtown LA. Yeah.
So basically, Climbing in Heels, I launched this podcast because I have, just like you do, the most powerful, badass fucking female friends. And as I sit around tables, wherever we go, I'm like, honestly, everyone's story is so completely different. And it's so interesting because my followers or listeners, like they see you as like Anine Bing, right? They're like, okay, oh my God, she's amazing, like whatever. But it's like, how the fuck did you get here, right? Because I think like for me, that's always the interesting part. Because I think the thing for me that I've always been asked the most is like, how did you get to where you are? Or like, how did you go from like growing up in this suburban town to like even getting into the world I'm in and you know, whatever. And so I think it's important to share the path, the journey, the story, because I think it really helps people. And I think people are fascinated to know. And I think having this insanely successful, amazing brand, you know, people that are fans of it, I think it's really interesting to sort of hear how it happened because I met you literally, I think when you had like 10 pieces.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that's like when I first met you. And it was funny because, you know, I was thinking about the first time we met and it was probably in baby class, but I don't think I ever registered it. And to me, I feel like I met you on a preschool tour when we were touring schools for Sky and Bianca. That's like my first memory of meeting you and Nico.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I think before we get into that, I think, you know, and I just remember it's funny. I'm like, who is this beautiful, cool couple? I was like, it was funny. Roger and I looked at each other. We're like, this preschool's too cool for us. I was like,
no. I did. Wow,
I was like,
no, I knew who you were. And I was very impressed. You were there on the same tour and you look so chic, of course.
My God.
In your high heels and like super, you were so beautiful. And it was, I remember you. I remember that moment.
Well, it was very funny because I remember you were in, if I remember correctly, like a biker jacket and like some kind of like white tee or like rock. You were you know, in like your ankle boots. And it was so funny because I remember Raj and I leaving and we definitely were like, this school's too far of a commute to bring a 3-year-old for sure for us. But I remember us leaving and then I saw you in baby class at Rebecca's. But I think it's important that we go back to, and I always like to start a little from the beginning. I don't want to make you tell your entire life story, but I do think it's important to get some kind of feeling for like, who were you as a child? You grew up in Sweden, right? You're Danish, but grew up in Sweden, or is that a lie?
It's not a lie.
Okay. So it's funny because Raj and I always had this thing. We're like, she's Danish, she's Swedish, she's Danish, she's Swedish.
I'll clarify to you
So
guys.
tell me.
No. So
Clarify.
I'm born in Denmark.
Clarify.
I'm born in Denmark, but my family moved to Sweden when I was 10. So I grew up 10 years in Denmark,
Got it.
then 10 in Sweden, and now I've been 20 years in America. So
oh my God, that's
it's
crazy.
been quite a journey. And so I feel like very international. I feel home in so many places.
Well, okay. So, and I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but I want to see if I'm right. And what were you like as a little girl? Were you like fashion obsessed? Were you tomboy? Were you outgoing? Were you like a party kid? Were you center of attention, or were you shy? Because I feel like the answer is going to be painfully shy, but tell me.
I wasn't painfully shy, but I was not like the popular girl or anything. You know, I grew up in a family. We were 5 siblings, 3 brothers, and I had a sister. And I was, you know, I just always did my own thing. I wasn't hanging out with the popular girls, but I just did my own thing, and I knew from early on what I wanted to do and didn't want to do. And so I didn't really follow the crowd. I just went my own way, and not overly shy, but not.
It's so funny. I see you being really shy.
Well, I am a little shy because now, right?
I think that you're shy I think you're shy in like a new situation.
Yes.
Probably not as much now, to be honest, but I think now you don't come off as shy to me now, but I feel like when I first met you, you felt more shy to me.
Yeah. I can be a little reserved or shy, you know? Like when I don't know, if I don't feel comfortable yet with somebody, but then when you know me.
And I don't feel like you need attention. Like, I don't feel like you're like a look at me kind of center of room person at all, which is super interesting because, you know, and we'll get into that later. But I think, okay, so you go through school. Did you go to college?
No, I did not go to college. So it's funny because Harvard asked me and Nico to speak at their business school in a week or 2 from now.
Oh my God, me too. Me too. But, and I was like, are you sure? Yeah. What?
So Bianca was like, my daughter said, Mom, you didn't even go to college. You know, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, that's what I'm going to talk about. You know, neither me or Nico went to university. We self-taught. Yep. I think what we have in common, me and Nico, is that we just from early on had a work ethic. We wanted to get out in the world, and we were not afraid to roll up our sleeves. And I think, you know, that's what we're going to talk about. So no, I did not go to college.
No, but I think it's very important to talk about because, first of all, listen, I am never going to judge about anyone who did or didn't. Some of the most successful people I know didn't even graduate high school.
Yeah.
So and I think that's a big part of what I like to talk about because I feel so strongly that your education does not define you, and it certainly does not define your path in life. And I think that it's always interesting for me to ask that question because I think it's important for people to really know that and how different everyone's path is. And had my parents, I hate to say this out loud, I don't know that I'd say it to my kids just yet, but I would say that if my parents had given me the option, I would have started working when I was 17, 100%, because I was the same.
Totally. But, you know, everybody, as you say, is so different. For some people, you know,
so different.
The school way is the way to go, and they become extremely successful that way, right? And others, they just need to get out in the world and learn by doing. And that was the path I chose.
100%. Okay. So clearly it had no effect on anything in your life. And what I would say is, I think the most important thing to talk about with your story is, so you and Nico were you married yet when you moved to LA?
So I moved to LA when I was 20. So that's 20 years ago. And I lived here by myself for many years before I met Nico. So I met him when I was 20.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I think I was when I met Nico. I met him in Europe and he came to visit and he never left. So, and shortly after we had Bianca and got married, and then we started the company in 2012.
That's incredible. Because see, this is what I love about doing this. I didn't know that. I actually thought that you were modeling, obviously, because you're beautiful and everything else. But here's the thing. I actually thought you guys met in Europe and moved here together.
No, I moved here when I was...
That's really interesting.
Yeah, early on I was modeling back then. And then I got into music, and I started a band, and I did a record and did music, and I did so many different creative things. And then I started the company with Nico.
And we're gonna get into that later because I kind of vaguely recall a little whisper that maybe you might be getting back into that a little for fun.
Yes. I was in the studio yesterday recording.
How insane is that? So there's a lot of things I want to talk about here because you moved to LA. First of all, why'd you move to LA and not New York? I asked that question only because.
But I started in New York, and the modeling agencies told me, you are more LA. Go to LA. So I guess I wasn't tall enough, not skinny enough, not edgy enough, all these things. So I came to LA, and I actually loved it here. I love the creativity, and it's a different vibe. And that I love New York, don't get me wrong, but there's something I really love about LA and the music scene, all the vintage shopping, flea markets.
Yeah.
So I really loved it here. So I decided to stay.
That's so interesting because, well, it's so dumb to me. It's like you're all of those things. I mean, the not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not tall enough. The good news is none of those things apply anymore, which I think is so beautiful.
Yes.
About the industry right now, and I'm very happy to see all of that change now. But I think it's important. I want to understand a little bit what were some of the scariest parts for you about starting a brand, because it's terrifying and it's hard. And did you start it once you met Nico, or did you start it by yourself and then he came into your life and just was like, I got this part kind of thing?
No, we started together, but it happened really organically. So before there was even Instagram, I had a fashion blog. Blogging was a big thing back in Scandinavia before everybody became an influencer on Instagram, right? And I had this blog for many, many years, and I just wrote about my life in LA and what I was wearing, and when I was in the studio recording music. Anine's World.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay.
So so I reported back, and people were always asking what I was wearing, and if I bought something at the flea markets, they wanted those pieces, right? So I think I was really good at finding unique pieces and styling them in a simple, cool way. So that's how the idea started to launch a brand, because it just happened organically. And Nico, my husband, he has a background in manufacturing, so that was super handy, right? He knew how to make the products. I knew how to design them and how to get them out to the world. So it started just with 10 pieces out of our garage in Silver Lake, with a little website that we built. I think it cost $1,200 to build this website, and we uploaded the products, and we did it all. We packed orders from our garage. We did customer service emails. We designed, we did manufacturing. We did it all. And then we slowly grew it from there.
It's incredible because it's like, well, first of all, I can speak firsthand because I've been on all sides of this industry. And I would say that doing a clothing business brand is the hardest part of this industry, period. Full stop. No questions asked. It is the hardest business ever in fashion, in my opinion. And anyone who wants to fight me on that, I wish them luck. But I would say that one of the most impressive things to me, something we've always connected on is that we work with our husbands. Yeah. Our husbands are our partners. And that comes with its own set of challenges and issues. But I do think that the thing about you and Nico is that you have a very clear line of what your role is and what his role is, right? Which I think is very helpful. But I also want to say that I think the most impressive thing to me about your brand is that it truly is you, right? Like it really is you. So I think you've managed to turn your blog, which is so funny because it sounds like blogging just sounds so like archaic now. Yeah. But I think into this brand that's obviously global, and you have a gajillion now stores. It's not just D2C. And I think that it is so true to you, which I think is amazing, because I think for me, one of the biggest challenges was being able to have success in creating what I loved. Yeah. And you clearly create what you love and having tremendous success at it. So I think there's this great infusion of this rock and roll girl and like with an edge and some grit. But I also think you've jumped more into like lady dressing, which I love, you know?
Yeah.
So not that I'm such a lady, but you know what I mean.
No, but you know, I am inspired by all, you know, I love all the iconic fashion houses, right? And as you know, as the brand is growing, you know, we have all our tweed jackets and I, you know, I think we really have hit a good market of creating affordable luxury. You know, it feels really timeless and beautiful, these pieces. And I think that's why the brand is also growing so fast, because so many women can relate to it. And maybe they like our striped t-shirt, or they like, you know, our blazers, and maybe they love the denim or the sunglasses. There are so many different ways you can dress in the pieces. So it is, you know, timeless, but with a rock and roll twist.
Now, I want to talk about what made you want to start, like keep rolling out brick and mortar stores, because that's something that, you know, in the pandemic and this whole like direct to consumer universe, that was really, really daring. And I remember talking to you guys about it and being like, they work, right?
Yeah,
like
they work really well. Yeah.
They really work.
Yeah.
They work really well. So tell me about that, because you're obviously continuing to open more and more. You had your 10-year anniversary last year, which is insane to me because it also showed me how long I know you.
We're getting older.
Also,
Rachel.
we can measure it by how old our kids are. That's how we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now we're the same age, as you know. So finally, we're the same age.
Anyway, but back to retail, you know, it happened very organically. When we launched the business 10 years ago, it was just with a e-com site, right? But then people, they wanted to touch and feel the products. And so 2 years in, we opened our first store in LA, and then it worked really well. We opened one in New York and then Paris. And today we have over 20 stores around the world. And it's doing really well.
Thing.
And I think it's a good balance between having the e-com, having our own stores, and then the important wholesale accounts, right? Because that's also how many people discover the brand.
Yep. And I don't want to say who, what scares you? Like, what keeps you awake at night? What wakes you up in the morning with the butterflies? If anything. Because I like to talk about that, like challenges and fears and things like that.
It's been so challenging, right? You know, especially the first many years. I feel now 10 years into it, it's a much better, like we have an amazing team. We have figured things out, right? We have a recipe now for what works and what doesn't work. So we've been through all the heartache and everything. So I feel like right now, and it changes every day, but right now we're in a really good place, team-wise and financial-wise. Everything is like working really, really well. But tomorrow it could change, right? So that's the ups and downs of having your own company.
Sure.
And butterflies.
That's being an entrepreneur.
For sure, right? And what gives me butterflies? So many things. You know, I just love creating, and I love my team. You know, I'm surrounded by so many women. I think we are over 150 employees, and most of them are like these incredible women, and they just inspire me on a daily basis. I love being here in the office in LA and just get to work on fun projects. We have so much fun coming up this year, so I'm just truly excited.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs know climbing to the top starts at the beginning. At Genesis, they're all about beginning. It's right there in the name, because the beginning is where the action is. Sure, things are up in the air in the beginning, but that's what makes them thrilling. Genesis has harnessed all that excitement into their performance SUV, the GV70. Turn heads with stunning design inside and out. The GV70 features the silhouette of a coupe and the capability of an SUV. Discover intuitive technology inside the GV70 with a 14.5-inch infotainment system, fingerprint recognition, and available Lexicon Premium audio. Enjoy an exhilarating drive in the GV70 featuring standard all-wheel drive and available electronically controlled suspension, plus exceptional handling and agility. I used to dread driving around LA because of the traffic, the stop and go, the blaring sun, always getting directly into my eyes no matter what time of day it is. But thanks to Genesis and their GV70, driving around here isn't too bad, especially when I'm driving in style. Every Genesis is a reminder to try something new, to keep growing, keep hustling, keep beginning. What will you begin? Learn more at genesis.com. Genesis, keep beginning. And how about like you made a huge move in the pandemic and you moved out of the city?
Yeah.
You moved out of the city. You seem blissfully happy there.
I'm so happy.
Like,
so happy.
So the Montecito, which is like the dream place. It's like I feel like we're gonna meet you there when in our next phase, we're gonna meet you in Montecito. But I feel like you're able now to live in this peace and then come in for the noise and then go back to the peace and come in for the noise.
It's a
correct?
dream, yes. Because to be honest, like the past 10 years has just been nonstop. There's been no balance whatsoever, right? It's just been boom, boom, boom. And so living, moving to Santa Barbara, Montecito has been life-changing for the family, but also for my personal well-being, mental health. Yeah, because there was no balance before. And now I work from home most days, and then I come down to LA once or twice a week, and it's perfect. And I travel a lot, of course, for work, and I feel like I get the best from all worlds. And it's not that it's not busy now, but I get to do it in my own little space, and it's not as stressful as
100%. And you have these two amazing kids that I'm lucky enough to know personally. And, I feel like, I always say the beauty of my husband being my partner is that we get to always roll as a family, right? Like you don't have to be pulled away from them and pulled from your husband. And you're not always kind of divided in what you have to do. And you also can like cover for each other, right? Like in certain ways. But tell me about that. Like, tell me about being, because you had kids young. I mean, I feel like you had them young, but I also had them late. So to me, it feels young. It's probably normal. But I feel like you really over 10 years were in the critical part of building your business and also parenting.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of did the critical and then had my kids, And so for me, I think it's a little bit different, but I think I'm curious to know how hard that was at times, and if it was, or if you just felt like this was their time. Because I would see you like running to school, and like it was like it was like the race, basically. I felt like
and when I look back at
and you lived far,
when I look back at
you're like, what was I doing?
What the fuck was I doing? Like it was way too hard. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, to be honest, and I wouldn't do it again the way I did. I went back to work 3 days after I had Benji. That's not okay, right? But when you run your own company, we didn't have a huge team back then. It was just back to work, right? And it all floats kind of together, that your private personal life and the work life when you work with your husband. And so it was super challenging, especially when I look back. I can see how stressed I was when I like look at photos and but we wouldn't be where we are today if I hadn't worked as hard as I did, right? So it's
100%.
It paid off, but and now I'm catching up on the mental health,
right? And that's a thing. No, but balance. It's true, and I think that's why it's important. That's why I bring it up, because I think for me, the question I get asked the most is, how do you juggle all these things and be a mom and da-da-da? And I'm like, what everybody kind of doesn't realize, except the people like it really in my life, is that I worked 24/7 for 15 years without children. Yeah. And then I had my kids. Yeah. And it will always be that thing in my head of either I wouldn't have built my business or I would have been more like an absent mom. Yeah. I don't know how, I don't want to say absent, but like you have to make harder choices, right? Yeah. I think when I look at you and I think about it as we're talking, I'm like, shit, she literally did those 10 years of building the brand while the 10 years of her kids and I watched it. And, listen, they're in school and this and that. And like, you're still with them all the time after school, but like, it's still internally and emotionally that struggle for sure.
And it was the hardest, I remember, when they were little and I had to travel a lot because we were opening stores in Australia and Europe, everywhere, right? And I had to be away from Benjamin when he was a little baby. That was really hard. That was the hardest part, I think, so traveling. Now it's easier when they're 9 and 12, because you can FaceTime, you can text them. It's a better understanding,
totally.
Right?
100%.
Yeah. And then also back then,
100%.
I didn't have time to, it's a balance. I didn't have time to have lunch with girlfriends and go for drinks. Like I didn't have that whole personal life, right? It was either family or work. So you got to sacrifice somewhere. You can't have it all at all times. So, but I chose my kids and my business.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And now look, and now look at you. You got to live this beautiful life with them on your time.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's really important to really understand, because I think for women, it's really hard. And it's harder in general for women because we have to choose, right?
Yeah.
We have to choose. It's like Serena Williams said, like, if I was a guy, I wouldn't be leaving tennis right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Like that's what's so interesting. Yeah. But I do want to know, I think, coming into this from, being in Sweden versus growing up here and knowing kind of everyone in the industry, I think you were always able to sort of do your own thing and be your own person without probably a lot of the petty, catty girl stuff that comes with, I hate to say girl stuff, but I would say industry stuff that I think, I've been faced with, and a lot of women that I know that are successful have had to deal with.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, are there moments that you remember of, you obviously don't name names, but people that tried to knock you down, people that tried to cut you out, people that were incredibly jealous of your success or your, what you were doing, competitors, things like that? Did you have to deal with that? And contrary to that, who kind of was your North Star in saying, I see what you're doing, I believe in you, and I'm going to support and help you? And I think I know who that was, but I want to hear from you if there were any
for sure,
moments like that.
I don't know, in Scandinavia they have this jantelag. It's like you don't want others to succeed, right? So for me, it was actually easier to start the brand in Los Angeles because all the naysayers and all the haters, it was actually a lot of Scandinavian people that had the attitude, who do you think you are, Anine? And good luck starting this.
That's so funny, by the way, because it's so nice to know that it exists in other countries and not just here, because I feel like it's such an American thing.
No, I feel the opposite. And maybe because it's just much stronger there. I felt like doing it in LA, people didn't judge that I was in a band before or was a model. I could just, start.
It's like, you're not a designer. You're not a,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I just did my thing here, but also I didn't give a shit. You cannot listen to all these voices, right? Because then you will not succeed. So of course I'm a sensitive person, and of course I could get hurt by, hearing how some women would talk, but then today I'm grateful for the life I'm living and what I've built, and I'm glad I didn't listen to any of that, right?
Yeah.
And
that's so interesting. And it's good. And it's also great that you're still so young, have had this success. You've worked your ass off for it. And it's also just such a good example for Bianca, I mean, for both your kids, but I think also for your daughter, it's so nice to see that you built this yourself. You didn't listen to people and you did your own thing and made your own path, right?
And I'm really trying to teach her that, she's off to middle school after the summer, and all the friends, they're going to different schools, right? But I'm teaching her, go your own way, because she knew what school she wanted to go to. She applied only to that school, and then all her friends are going somewhere else. Yep. And I'm proud of her for choosing her own way and not just following the crowd, right? And I think that's important to teach them early on that you go your own way, and even if your friends don't follow necessarily, it's okay, right? You can still do your thing.
I mean, it's true. And also I think for our kids, as long as they know that they're safe with you, I think their decisions like that are easier for them to make, right?
Yeah.
And I think obviously having you as her mom is, I think she watches you do your thing, and she's probably like, yeah, I'm not scared.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope to inspire her.
She's the coolest kid ever. They both are. I mean, you have the coolest kids ever. But I think I mean, it's very interesting for me to hear that because, like, obviously, you know, like in London, that obviously all that pettiness and the talk and the talk that exists, but you wouldn't think in like Denmark or Sweden that would really be a culture there. But
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. Okay, so then what was the turning point for you in your career where you were like, okay, Nico, we're good. Like this is real. Like this is real. Like was it 5 years in? Was it 7 years in? Was it 4 years? Like, because there's a pivotal point in building a brand that you have to either stop and pivot or you power through and you keep going, right? And I think you guys have been very, what's the word? Like flexible. You've been you guys have changed directions a few times. You've gone deeper into one thing and not in another. But I think looking at the brand today and over the last 5 years, for me, it's like it's just going up, 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 up. And so I think there obviously is there a person that was like, guys, I'm in. Like, I support this. This brand is incredible, and I want to see what it can do.
I feel like there's been so many little turning points along the way, right? The first time, like Rosie Huntington, like wore our leather jacket, right? And then that trickled down to all the cool girls wanting to wear their brand. And then opening our first store in LA, but then in Paris, like I remember opening a store in Paris. That was a big moment, right? And then all these investors
the dream.
starting reaching out and wanted to invest in the company. We didn't even go out and search for
Ask
it.
for it.
No, and I feel like so many amazing little moments have led to another, and that has been our whole. Like we didn't have a business plan when we started this business. It's been really organic how everything came together, and still today, we have a really, not relaxed approach, but like we work so hard.
No, but you found your groove.
And so lucky to have so many amazing, supportive women along the way. You being one of them.
Well,
so thank you.
Well, listen, I love you and I love the brand. And, I think, as I said earlier, I think having been in clothing and creative directing and stuff, I prefer to do it for other brands, if that makes sense, because I think to do what you do, I think it's so important that people understand. And I say this so often, it's so important. It has to be your full-time job.
Yeah.
I think, meaning when I started doing clothing, it was supposed to be part of my business, not my whole business. And I think that what I have learned is really to succeed in it fully, it really has to be your job. This is your baby. This is your brand. And I think that for me to watch people succeed in it and keep their vision so clear and the brand true to who they are and keep that DNA so consistent, I think that's the dream, right? And I think for me to sort of watch that success, it's so well deserved. And I think that's the thing Roger and I always say every time we leave you and Nico, we're like, they deserve every bit of the success. And it's really fun to watch it. And I think one thing I always say on this podcast is, and in any interview, I can't scream it at the top of my lungs enough, because I think the biggest mistake young people make is they try to really architect their life. They really try to plan out by age 18, I'm doing this. I'm going to this school. I'm going to go to here. And then at 22, I'm going to do this. And at 25, I'm going to launch my own this, or I'm going to meet my husband at this. And then I'm going to have a baby at 30. And I'm like, stop. You have to stop doing that. You have to let life just happen and roll, because I think opportunities hit you at different points. And sometimes this dream you had, that dream changes so much, and I think that's okay. And I think it's a danger zone to get stuck in those plans, and
one
and I
thing
think it messes
another,
I think
right?
that messes your mental health.
No, for sure. And one thing leads to another, and it's not like I dream. I have mood boards since I was a little girl. I've been writing down like my goals and dreams, and
of course,
and cutting out little. So I have big dreams, but it's also going with the flow and listening to your gut feeling and just go with that.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's a really good point. I think it's important to dream and important to live those dreams, but don't try and make bullet
No,
points
exactly.
of your life,
No,
right?
no, that's
because
then you're just
because
gonna get disappointed.
I think it, thank you. And that's what I always say is
Yeah.
like that sets you up. And I think that really impacts your mental health.
Yeah.
And I think that along with social media really can affect your mental health. And so so it's nice to hear that from you. And I think what is next? Like I feel like every, several months there's a whole new thing happening. So please tell me like what anything you can share and like what's the sort of end? I don't want to say end because I hate to use the word end, but like, do you say not over planning your life or your world, but are you like, okay, in 5-10 years, I'm going to be here. Like, are you going to move back? Are you going to stay in the US? Do you want to sit on a beach? Like, do you ever think about that?
I do. And I live, like I am there now where I've been dreaming about my whole life, so I feel really grateful. Like I still love my job and love creating. I'm so happy in Montecito and having that work-life balance. And, when I started the company 10 years ago, I could not dream of how big it would be today, that we would have stores all over the world, right? It's hard for me also to think where we'll be in 5 or 10 years from now, because I could never have dreamt of where we would be today, right? But we have a really exciting year ahead for the brand. I can't share everything. We have new category launching. We have the most incredible muse that's going to be the face of our brand that I can't talk about quite yet.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's just really exciting time and
endless.
Opening at least 5 more stores this year. I'll go with the flow and enjoy this moment, because it is really a good moment for me personally and for the brand.
You should enjoy every second of it. Thank you. I love you madly. I love having you on Climbing in Heels, because you do climb even if your heels are like,
not as high as yours.
biker, right? Like, I mean, as they shouldn't be, because you're genetically blessed on all accounts, but also with height. But yeah, I mean, if you put mine and Anina's foot next to each other, she'd have like a biker boot with a little like 2-inch heel, and then I'd have some like stilts on of some sort.
I still talk to Nika about when we went camping with the class, and you showed up in like these super high heels. We all came in our camping clothes, and of course Rachel comes in there in her chic dress and high heels. You are forever chic.
I am just, it's like, you get to that point in your life where you go, all right, I am who I am, for better or for worse.
No,
this is who I am. Hands up, I surrender. No. Well, I love you madly. I'm so happy you're on, and I love your story. I love watching you win. I love your family and those beautiful kids. I think, secretly, me and Anine really hope that Sky and Bianca get married.
Yeah. Let's make it happen.
That would be so fun. That'd be so fun, because then I'd have someone to give my clothes to.
She would be very, very lucky. I want your clothes and your jewelry, Rachel.
Listen, babe, it's all yours. I got boys at this point, so let's see. It's here to share. All right, I love you. Have a wonderful day. Send my love to everybody.
Same.
And I'm excited to see what's coming. Oh wait, should we tell everyone now? I'm the new face of Anine Bing. I am going to be on billboards. I'm going to be on Sunset Boulevard and in Soho, and in Paris at Charles de Gaulle Airport. I will be the face. I don't know, because I'm too expensive. That's why. I'm just too expensive. All right, I love you. It's that time in the show where I answer 2 listener questions. So let's see what we have today. Okay, March is Women's History Month, and we just celebrated International Women's Day. And I would love to know which women have inspired you most. So many women have inspired me, but honestly, I think who remains at the top of my list, just as a woman with a powerful voice who always feels right to me, Oprah. from the beginning of time, from the beginning of Oprah. I mean, literally one of the first women I ever like fell on that like wasn't my mom or my sister. I just could listen to her speak all day and night. I feel the same way about Michelle Obama. I have great respect for her. I love listening to her. I love smart women. And I think from like, you know, a sort of style, fashion, breaking down walls kind of thing. I mean, Coco Chanel for sure would be one of them. I mean, I love Iman. She's someone who is fearless and glamorous and has a strong voice that she's not afraid to use. Yeah, I have a lot of women that I look up to, and I just don't think it's like the women that people would expect that I would necessarily, but I was a huge fan of Princess Diana, huge fan. And I was very young actually, but I just thought she was everything. I really get inspired by people that take their influence and use it in the right way, if that makes sense. Okay. What were some of your favorite looks from Paris Fashion Week? Wow, I had a lot. I mean, honestly, I think Jean-Baptiste's show was extraordinary. Valentino just blew my mind like it always does. McQueen was just so beyond. And there's one dress in that collection that if I don't see it at the Oscars, I'm going to cry a river. God, there were a lot. I thought Paris was just beautiful. Really, really beautiful. But those are definitely some of my favorites. Chanel, of course, all day, every day. And I mean, the list goes on, but I would say those are definitely like the ones that come to my mind quickly. Okay. Don't forget to submit your questions for next week's episode. All you have to do is DM us your questions to @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram, and I might just answer them. Okay, I just want to say a huge thanks to my friend Anine for coming on Climbing in Heels and opening up about her life, her story, her career, and her goals. And, you know, I really always love speaking to other women who are business partners with their husband and also parent with them, because let me tell you, it's a lot. It's always a very interesting mix. And, you know, it has its own challenges, but still, I'm pretty sure none of us would change it. It's very interesting for me always to learn even more about my friends that I thought I knew everything about, and I actually don't. But I think a big takeaway, I think, from this episode is how Anine sort of left a lot of, you know, skepticism about who she was, what she was trying to build in Sweden. And I think knowing that that sort of pettiness and cattiness does exist, you know, overseas as well. And I think that she just went on to do her own thing. She started in music and as a model, and then took a total pivot and started this brand, and then built the brand while she was raising her kids very young. And as she mentioned, I think, you know, leaving her baby when he was 3 days old to go, you know, work. And I think these are the sacrifices. And I think her kids, my guess is they very much understand and appreciate what she and Nico have built. So for me, it's really fun to watch. And I love cheering for them. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, because I think the goal for me in creating Climbing in Heels is to really highlight different paths to the top, because no path is the same. There's no judgment, because the reality of it is you're here. It doesn't, you know, but I'm always interested in how you got there. So, and how you got here, because it doesn't happen overnight and no path is easy. And I think that's a common thread in Climbing in Heels. So if you want more Climbing in Heels content, follow me on @RachelZoe and @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram for more updates on upcoming guests, episodes, and all things Curator. I will see you next week.